bridge to eternal life. Jesus, our hope, our bridge to eternal life.
Hello and welcome to The Bridge. My name is Robert. I'm your host, and with me is my co-host, Avril. This week we're beginning our discussion on who is God. We will be exploring what empirical data we can use to prove that God really exists. We have two very interesting guests with us today. We have Kelly Hill, who is an enthusiast for all things scientific. She's also a member of our church choir. She teaches children, and she is also a registered nurse. She has a passion for Christ, and she's very, very adept at learning languages. We also have with us Kevin Shaw. Kevin lives and worships in Bristol. He has been a Christian for the last 38 years. He likes and is involved in various church ministries, but at the moment, he's spending more time in his local congregation. Kelly and Kevin, we are indeed happy to have you.
Good to be here, thank you.
Now, one of the biggest questions that we are faced with is when you talk to people about God, is the question that confronts you. How can I believe in a God that I cannot see or touch? Let us address this question as our starting point. Kevin, how would you respond to that?
Well, thank you, Robert. I think it's a fair question to ask, and I think it's something that we need to be able to respond to. And I think usually we would say that, seeing is believing. I will only believe it if I can see it or touch it. That might seem reasonable, but I don't think we realise how much really in life we don't actually adhere to that rule that we would usually use. And I think one of my sort of examples might be history. We are, I wasn't around when Julius Caesar was around. Well, I'm not that old. I wasn't around that time. Most people would only understand his life through history, through historic writings. Nobody would question he exists, and if we were taught that at school, we wouldn't question it. We operate, maybe unknowingly, not in the realm of seeing is believing. We will hear things and believe them, and maybe trust the source of who is telling us. And that's all the proof that we need. But I think it's just important to understand that our beliefs also come from our experiences, because most things we experience, and we will then judge from that whether we should believe in something or not. I can't, my consciousness, I can't see it, but because of how I feel and experience life, I will use that as a basis for my worldview. And I think it's just important for us to say that, the Christian worldview isn't the only worldview that operates on the basis of trust and faith in what's being told. We all do that throughout life, and I think that's really important for us to make. Really.
Kelly, how do you
Well,
see that?
just to build off what Kevin has said, in terms of believing in things that we can't necessarily see or touch, but we've experienced. If we think about something like the emotions, we cannot see our emotions, but we know they exist. A good emotion, for example, is love. We know that parents show a tremendous amount of love to their children. Children, in turn, show a tremendous amount of love to their parents. But the love itself, we cannot see it. We cannot touch it. We can't smell or taste it. But we experience it. We know that it's there. We know that it exists. In the same way, with God, we can't see him, we can't taste him, we can't touch him. But we see the effects of him in people's lives. Sometimes just the knowledge that God is there is enough to have a positive effect in the life. So in that way, we still believe.
I totally get that, because I'm thinking there is something very simple about gravity. Okay. So if I jump up, I have to come down. But I can't see gravity. We know it's there. We know it controls a lot, but I can't see it.
It's like having a toothache, eh?
Yeah.
You can't touch the pain.
Mm-hmm.
but you can feel it. You can't see the pain either,
Yes.
No.
but you know it's there
Yes.
because you can feel it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I think that's important. It's the point that you don't have to just see or touch to know something exists. Yeah. We look at gas, natural gas. Can't see it. On its own, it doesn't smell, but I know it's a great thing because it cooks. We use it to get warmth. You know what I mean? Carbon monoxide is something that sort of comes to mind as well. So, you know, you can't see it, you can't smell it. If it leaks into a room and it's not detected,
We're dead.
you're going to die. Saying that, I'm not trying to say that seeing something or touching something is not important in being able to kind of come up with our view and our assessment of the world, but it's important to state that those are not the only facets that we use to determine whether something is real or true or not.
The truth of the matter is that, yes, you are right, because even the things that we can't see or touch, gas you have mentioned, can kill us. And in the same way, we can't see God, we don't touch him, but we know that he's there.
I have an example.
Okay.
So this example is more technological.
Yeah.
So, for example, most of us have Wi-Fi in our houses now, you know, internet. I cannot see the waves coming off the Wi-Fi. But when I look at the phone, if it's connected, the sign is there.
Yeah.
So the evidence of this invisible force is present. If you look at, say, a computer, if your computer goes wrong or you click on the wrong web page, they might tell you your computer is infected with a virus. You can't see the virus, but you know that it's there. If you look at the common cold or the flu, you can't see the physical virus with your plain eyes, but you experience the virus in the body. You got the runny nose, the eyes, you know, maybe a headache, achy muscles. You experience this invisible attack, so to speak. The most common virus, or the most popular one, should I say, nowadays, is COVID-19. We've all been touched by it in some way, shape, or form. We can't see the physical COVID virus, but we've seen the effects worldwide, very far-reaching and very deadly. So in the same way, even in the very nature and simple things, we don't always see them, but we believe them because we experience them and we know them to be true.
I see what you're saying about seeing and believing is not all there is. You have to experience things in the physical sense. But, you know, let's be a bit real here. We know that there are people out there who says God does not exist.
Yeah.
For example, they say things like the world was created by accident.
I think it is a point that is made that, you know, the world is created by accident. But I think we have to, you know, also look at things objectively with common sense. Okay, common sense, you can't bottle it, you can't see it, but we're all trying to apply it, aren't we? So we know it exists. When you look at the beauty of creation, when you look at the planets, when you look at, even if you don't want to go as far as the planets, you look at the Earth, the beauty, you know, Niagara Falls, all these sort of places, we look at the, you know, how everything is so fine-tuned in the universe. Us as humans, our ability to even explore science, our ability to make music, all these great abilities. Our conscience, being able to think, to reason. It seems almost nonsensical to think that this has not come about by something greater than us. We are constantly told it's come about as a random act. It's just happened by chance. And I don't think the evidence of what we see points to that. If I had 3 tins of paint on top of my ladder and I just knocked it down like that, when you looked on the floor, you saw the Mona Lisa. You'd say, well, hold on. That's what we're being told, that this random thing has taken place. But when we look at what is being created and our experiences, these are not random things. The statement that I read by Stephen Hawking, and he was talking about creation. He made a statement about the law of gravity. He said, because there is such law as gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing. Spontaneous creation is the reason there is something rather than nothing, why the universe exists. It is not necessary to invoke God to light the blue touch paper. And I thought, that's a very bold statement to make without any proof.
So I hear you talking about the creation of the physical world, and you are saying you can't see it happening by accident. But, you know, intelligent design. You know, Kelly, what would you say about that as it relates to humans?
Well, if we're talking about the human element, I'd like to bring in the matter of the conscience. So the conscience, some people think of it as the angel devil on the shoulder. You know, do something good, no, do something bad. But as humans, we all seem to have the ability to tell right from wrong. Now, we know some of it is taught. But if we look across different cultures, certain morals and certain issues of the conscience are the same. For example, it's generally accepted to be true that it's wrong to kill another human.
Yes.
We don't take what does not belong to us. The Bible would say, you know, thou shalt not steal. So to have this collective...
Science cannot prove the existence of God, but they will make those statements, yeah? And in effect, God does not exist is a statement of faith because you can't prove it.
Collective knowledge of what is right and what is wrong across different cultures, it must have come from either something or someone outside of ourselves. It's not something that just develops innately because our societies are too different for the same thing to come about again and again and again and again. And coincidence is once or twice, but for it to be consistent throughout the world, it points to something outside of ourselves. And that's something I would like to say is God.
You obviously don't believe conscience is built up over time.
No, not over time.
Okay. So how do you respond to those who say that science disproves God?
Well, first, let's look at how science explains itself. So the scientific process is one where you make a theory, you test it, and you get the result. But for science, you must be able to test it again and get the same result. So for that, you need controlled measures. Some say a laboratory for certain things, but in general, you need the same parameters. So if one apple and another apple is two apples, I need to be able to say that one orange and another orange is two oranges. So the 1 and 1 makes 2 every time.
Right.
However, with things that you cannot see or touch physically, it's very difficult or sometimes even impossible to have testable proof in a controlled environment in a repeatable way. So in that sense, science almost starts on the back foot because it's requesting for you to have this level of proof that it ascribes itself to, repeatable, the same every time. But that cannot be done when coming to prove God in the way they want, touch and feel and smell. Yeah.
Kevin, would you?
I would.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
How did the world come? Can you
Well,
explain
according
that?
to science, there was a large energy output, a big bang, if you will. We don't know where it came from. We don't know the type of energy, but there is a general agreement that it happened. And then this big bang is what started the process of the creation of the universe. So, you know, gravity comes into play. You've got, you know, your protons, your neutrons, you know, squeezing together, swirling, and then gases and things of that nature forms, almost as if by magic. Lots of complicated things. And then from all of these things, you then get your planets and, you know, your stars and your universes and Milky Ways and such and so forth. We also get all of the elements essential for life. Your nitrogen, your carbon, your oxygen, for example. And then eventually through this process over time, science says that we then get our very, very complex double helix DNA. Evolution, although is largely by the scientific community accepted as fact, is still a theory. It's not fully proven. I have some questions here. So, for example, we have Charles Darwin. He has his theory of evolution, but biologically, it doesn't quite explain to us fully how life has come about, it often leaves more questions than answers. If you don't mind, I've got some questions here. So, for example, how did the first living organism come from a lifeless matter on this planet? It's mind-boggling. They're saying something came from nothing. Which is it's a bit difficult for me to get my mind around. One of the greatest mysteries of science. How did consciousness arise in living things? Why are we humans not like animals?
You've already talked about that element before, saying how it can be universal and globally. If it's accident, we can all...
If we all have it, it must have come. But according to Charles Darwin, his theory doesn't quite explain that, even though it's been largely accepted as fact, like you said. Why is our universe so precisely tailor-made for life? Particularly on this planet, because we haven't gone out to the others yet. But finally, why is even the tiniest particle of matter just so unbelievably complicated? You look at a simple skin cell. The amount of different things that goes on inside of that cell, just to be on the skin, to live for a few days or weeks and then come off. But when you look at the intricacies, there has to have been, shall we say, an intelligent designer. I like to say it's God.
You know, the ability for us to create music and architecture, medicine, physics, mathematics, and so on. There's a lot of questions that the scientists have not been able to give us an answer for.
Paul Nelson, philosopher of computer science at the Computer History Museum. So the guy is very knowledgeable and he's really into science. And he says things, and I'll quote this. He says, science is not only about evidence, which is what we've said, but it's also about the interpretation of evidence. So we look at everything we do, every concept, everything we do, we look at two models or two concepts of how the world began, and everything focuses around that. And it's either the Genesis story, and the Genesis story is historical. It's a factual, it's a narrative that comes down through thousands of years, but not just narrative, it's documented. So we have that information. And the second one, and when he said this, it really hit home. He said, the evolution story was constructed 274 years ago. So his question is, do I believe in the narratives that go back thousands of years and documents that tell us that, or do I believe in a construction from someone that only a couple hundred years? He said, I know what I would believe.
I understand that there are other belief structures, other worldviews that will talk about the creation of the universe in different ways, whether, this Greek god did this and whatever had this, and I get that. But again, it's how we apply what we have, the evidence that we have. So again, we're not trying to knock science here.
No.
We need science and we accept it. And I think something that I was hearing. I mean, the fact that there are, the great, however hundreds of years ago, the great scientists, Galileo and all these people, it was their belief in God that stemmed them, that made them research and find and pursue science.
From the basis of the Bible.
From the basis of believing in God creating. And I don't think there has to be that disconnect between science and God.
I'd just like to say that both of you have raised some very, very important issues in this first program as we try to talk about God. And the thing about it is that God is so big, can't contain him in a box, and so on. But you said something earlier on, and he says that in this world we're driven by the ideology that seeing is believing, and that one can understand, therefore, why someone will find it difficult to believe in a God that they cannot see or touch. But you also talk about the fact that, the information that we gather and the knowledge we gather from geography, from history and science is that a lot of it is that we believe it because we are told and we accept it. And so the conclusion then is that our belief and knowledge will come mainly from that which we have heard. And so this seeing and believing concept can really be considered as a myth, because we can't see love. We don't touch it, but we believe it. So therefore, why then, if we can believe in love and other emotions, the logical conclusion then is, why can't we believe in God, whom we cannot see or touch? So we have to be careful then, listeners, how we become skeptical or cynical when we listen to all the fake news that is around. People accept it as gospel. We listen to speakers, we listen to politicians, they say things, and we just accept it as gospel. For us as Christians, we need to understand, and for those of you listening, that because we are moved by faith, the book of Romans chapter 10 and verse 17 says that faith comes by hearing, and hearing comes through the words of God. And it is so easy just to say, I need to see God and then I'll believe. But that would not be belief. If we have to see it before we can believe, then that's not belief. Because by definition, a belief is accepting something that is true, even though we can't say, yes, I see or touch it. And so the conclusion that we want to draw as we come to the end of this episode is that in the book of St. John, chapter 20 and verse 21, Jesus gives us a promise. And the promise that he has given us, it says that blessed are those who believe even though they do not see. And so believing the gospel is pivotal. The gospel that has the power to transform and change life is that gospel that says, I believe in the Messiah, I believe in Jesus, the Son of God, because by believing in him, even though I have not seen him, I know that I have eternal life. And so that's the essence and the power of the gospel, for us to believe this good news that is able to transform and to change our lives, and also that good news which gives us the hope of eternal life that can be found in Jesus Christ. So I'd like to thank you both for coming on the program. I'd like to thank you for sharing with myself and Avril. I trust that our listeners have been enlightened. And of course, this is just the beginning. There is much more to come. As we have said in our introductory program, we'll be exploring much about God, about Jesus, the meaning of life. And so, having listened to this evening, we hope that you will be encouraged and inspired to join us on the next program.
We're happy to take your questions, your thoughts, your ideas. And just a reminder, that's why we're here. And you can send us your question and thoughts about this topic or any topic, or questions on any topic you want to ask us. So on the screen below, you'll see the contact details. And the website is www.cogseventhday.org.uk. Our email is thebridgetv@cogseventhday.org.uk, or you can call us on 0208 668 6094.
Don't forget that we will be here every week, Sundays 8 to 8:30 p.m. on Faith World TV, Sky Channel 589 and Freeview 264. So please join us and our special guest next week and help us start exploration of who God is. So until next week, from Robert and Havril, have a great week, and God's richest blessings be on you and yours.